What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Trink. Today I'm going to be showing two great applications of a thing called Loc-Line. It's a flexible hose system that's typically used in industrial machines for coolants and things like that. But I'm going to show two great applications for the Woodshop, and I'm sure there's tons of others that you guys can come up with. So this will be short, but I think you'll like it. So let's go ahead and dive into the video. Okay, so basically Loc-Line is this sort of rigid but movable, posable coolant hose system. Now typically this is used on like industrial CNC machines or metalworking things that need a coolant fluid right at the cutting tip. But what I'm going to show is that there's a bunch of uses for it in the wood shop, which I've found over the last few months, and I've been really enjoying using it. So here, for instance, is their 1/2-inch Loc-Line. Now what you can do is if you have multiple segments of this, I do recommend you get this tool sold by them for putting it together, because you'll find without this tool it's very tough to put it together. But you can just take this and then, well, you gotta line it up. Take that, snap that together, pull the tool off. So you can see you can kind of use it to disassemble and customize it to your needs. Now also they'll come with a variety of nods. This is a national pipe thread here that comes on it, so this is obviously standard for industrial applications, but there's a variety of other tips that come with it, and I'll kind of show some of those throughout. This here is their, I believe this is the 2.5-inch rigid hose, and this is the one we're going to use on the dust collector. Again, comes with a variety of nozzles. I just use this one here for pretty much everything I do. So these are the ones I have. They have a bunch of other sizes, but I just wanted to show what this stuff is. And once you pose it, it really holds its form nice and rigid, so it's not going to be flopping around on you. It's not like those little helping hands that are very flexible. This is very strong stuff. Made in the USA, so it's good products. So let's show how we use them now. So one area I often see people struggling with is getting dust collection on their drill press, and I've seen all sorts of kind of crazy solutions online, on videos, on websites of people putting all sorts of contraptions on the end of their drill press to try and collect the dust at the source. Now what I'm going to show here is just using this 4-inch Loc-Line hose. All I've done is mounted it to a bracket down here, which I can connect my 4-inch dust collector to. I can then just move this arm to pose exactly where I need that dust collection to be, right at the tip of the drill bit. It takes 2 seconds to move, or if I just want it out of the way, I just twist it out of the way, and it gets perfect dust collection, as we'll take a look at now. The first step there will just be to collect our dust collection to the bracket right here, and you can see that's slaps in place right there, and that's plugged in. Okay, next I'll just show how we'd set up this cut. So of course we're going to first load in our drill bit like usual. Okay, then we're going to set our table height. Okay, so now we've got our drill bit exactly where we want it. All we have to do is take 2 seconds to put our hose such that it's collecting right at the port. All we're going to do is flip on our dust collection and look at how well it picks up the dust. Okay, so you can probably see from that, it literally left zero dust behind. It picks it up all as we're drilling at the surface. We can see we got two nice clean holes there. Now let's put it to a little more of a test with the Forstner bit. Okay, so just to further demonstrate how good the dust collection is using this, I put in a Forstner bit here, just like a 1/2-inch Forstner bit or 3/4, whatever this is. And I'm just going to drill a couple holes here just so you can see how well this gets all the dust, because typically a Forstner bit is one of the dustier bits you can use on a drill press. So you can see we still got a few of the bigger chips coming out, but now what I'm going to do is compare it to not using this at all, and I think you'll see how much dust we really captured when doing it with this. So I think you can probably see just from that how much dust really does get collected when we are using the Loc-Line chute there. When we don't use it, we've got just a ton of dust here. When we did use it, we just had a couple of the bigger chips. So overall, super efficient dust collection. Again, all you have to do is get one of these 4 to 2.5 adapters, plug in your 4-inch dust hose, and then go straight to the Loc-Line, and then you could even make your own nozzles, you know, to fit your needs, but this one has worked well for me. And when you don't need it, you just pivot it out of the way and it's good to go. So pretty great method. So if you've been doing woodworking for a while and you care about the accuracy of your machines, then you've probably seen one of these. This is of course a dial gauge indicator. So as you depress the NOS here at the end, you get that reading on how much that displacement has gone. And this is accurate down to about 1/1000th of an inch. You can get even finer ones, but for woodworking, about 1 thou resolution is pretty good. Now what I wanted to do was make a gauge or a jig that could actually allow me to check runout on rotary devices. So my drill press, checking the runout on the chuck on that, on my lathe. I wanted to be able to check that there was no runout on the main shaft coming out those bearings. And so what I wanted to do was use the Loc-Line to make sort of a posable arm to do this. So what I've done is come up with a series of components here that when combined are going to give us exactly that. So it's centered around one of these. This is this Mag Switch 95. So if you've seen these, what you do is you put them onto a magnetic surface, any metal, and then when you turn this a quarter turn, all of a sudden it activates that magnet and you get a very secure hold there. What I wanted to do was sort of base this device around this so that you can move it from metal surface to metal surface to, you know, adhere it to whatever tool you're working on. So the first step there was to design a little bracket that would fit into this guy. Luckily, the Mag Switch actually offers the CAD file for this particular model, and so I was able to get exact dimensions there and make this piece just perfectly fit in there. And then what we're going to do is just throw a couple machine screws in and just secure that down with a couple nuts, and that's going to hold this piece rigid. So let's do that quick. Okay, so you can see that you've got a couple machine screws that just hold this part on there. So you can see the N90 or N95, probably thinking of COVID while I'm saying that. The Mag Switch magnet here perfectly locks into this 3D printed piece, and then those 2 machine screws and nuts just hold that on. So here's our base. Now if you'll see, we've got a small protrusion here, and that's going to perfectly fit our Loc-Line. So you can see that this has a nice friction fit on there. Now on the final application, I would recommend using a bit of epoxy to adhere that, just because as you're moving this arm around, it's a good fit, but this can start to sneak off the base there. So I would just recommend putting a little epoxy or super glue. But even without, it's actually a very secure hold just because it's a nice tolerance fit there. Okay, so finally I wanted to be able to adhere the dial gauge indicator to the end. So here we've got one last little part. Now this part here is a little bit specific to this particular brand. This is just like a $20 one off Amazon. I'll probably be making another more universal model, but you can see we've got this lug on the this knob on the underside of the lug here. And so what we can do is just fit that in, and again this is just a nice friction fit, so that kind of snaps into place, and then that's held very securely. On the bottom here we've just got a fit. This will go into that Loc-Line. Again, you can hear that friction fit, and so now what we've got is one unit that has the magnet at one side, our dial gauge indicator at the other, and this will allow us to check the runout on various tools. So let's go take a look at that. Okay, so first pit stop is going to be here at the lathe. Now one thing you'll often want to do if you get a new lathe or an old lathe is just check to make sure that you have your shaft is running true on the lathe here. You can do that either by checking, first off you need to find a nice tolerance piece, so you wouldn't want to check, you know, where a hole is or where indentations are, obviously. So you could check right here on the handle. You could remove the chuck here and check the shaft. I'm just going to show this right here on the handle. So first thing we're going to do is take our jig, take our mag switch, give that a quarter turn. Okay, there we go. Now we're adhered, and you can see that's a very strong connection. We're good to go. Next, we can just use the Loc-Line to pose our arm onto the shaft we want to check. So what I'm going to do is just bring this up and around until that starts to depress a bit. We now have that in place. Now you can zero the gauge if you want to do that, but in this case all I'm going to do is just run the lathe. Now one thing we have to check is that you can see there we caught a little knob in there, so what we have to do is find a slightly different location. There we go. So now as we turn the lathe on, we're going to see if there's any drift. Okay, so you can see in this particular spot there was a couple thousandths of drift. Now that could be because this isn't machine perfect on this knob. A better check would be go to the shaft directly right on the outfeed of the motor here. But again, this is just more so showing how you can use this jig more so than is my lathe dialed in. Okay, so another place we can easily use this jig is if we want to check for any runout on the arbor flange or on the shaft of our table saw. So all we have to do is remove the blade, remove the throat plate, and set it up. Okay, so you can see we've got the jig there locked onto the cast iron top, and then we've just got the dial gauge indicator resting there at the top of that flange. At this point we can just come in, rotate that pulley by hand, and make sure that there's no drift in the needle. So I'm just going to rotate this by hand, and that needle is staying within about 3/4 of a thousandth right there. So pretty much no movement at all, and that's perfect. That's what we should expect on a high quality table saw. Okay, just to show one of the other setups we can have this in here, I've just got locked onto the cast iron of the drill press. So a more precise way of going about the test like this on a drill press would be to get a well tolerance steel rod, chuck that into your chuck, and then reference the steel rod using the dial gauge indicator. This is just an example of how to use this jig, so I'm just referencing kind of the tip of the chuck here, which should be pretty well machined, hopefully, and now we can just fire this up. So you can see there the needle's drifting, I'd say between 4 or 5 thousandths. That's actually pretty good because I can just feel this surface, and that's probably not even machined down to a thousandth, maybe not even 2. So overall it seems like there's not much run out in this. Of course we could do more testing, but just wanted to show how you can use this for numerous tools and setups in the wood shop. And then to complete the setup at the drill press, we can just hook our Loc-Line back into our adapter there. That sits nicely, and we got our dust collection and we're ready to go. Okay guys, that's going to do it for this video. Just a couple tips I wanted to show. I think the Loc-Line has a lot of applications in the wood shop. Guys, if you're interested in buying a jig like this, at least the 3D printed components, let me know in the description. I'm still just finalizing the design, but I think you've seen here it has a bunch of applications and is very useful for getting a well tolerance machine set up. So let me know in the description. Otherwise, I'll leave a link to Loc-Line. Good product, check it out. Lots of more videos coming this summer, guys. I got a lot of projects on the way. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.